But me tell you about my life and how it all went sideways. My name's Jack, hailing from the heart of Europe, born and bred. Grew up in a small town in the Netherlands where the canals and windmills are as numerous as the bikes. I lived in this charming place before I tied the knot with Laura, my college sweetheart. She's a cook by profession too, just like me, but never really got started with her career. Now we live in this quaint little house on the outskirts of Amsterdam. Its brick walls as red as the apples Laura used to bake into her pot. Nothing too fancy, but warm and inviting. I always loved returning to its embrace after a long stint away from home. You see, my job has me bouncing around like a pinball, cooking up a storm in different hotel kitchens across Europe. They call me a trainer, but I'm really just a cook doing his bid to share a bit of my craft. Let me tell you about more. She's this gorgeous woman with the hardest, softest butter on a hot summer day. We met in culinary school, and it was love over a shared passion for food and the art of cooking. I fell for her over flams and souffles. We got married right out of college expecting a life of shared kitchens and dreams baked good, but things turned out a bit different. Laura, she's always been a homebody, never one for travel or change. And then we have our little boy, Alex, who just turned 4. He's the apple of my eye, and I wish I could spend more time with him. But you know how it is, the job demands, the constant travel, and the distance. The thing is, the connection between Laura and Alex always seemed a bit off. Alex, he gets all nervous and jumpy around her, like she's a stranger or something. I thought it was just one of those phases kids go through. Oh, and I can't forget to mention Ronnie. A goes from the college days, a good-for-nothing bully who just can't seem to leave our lives. He and Laura, they've stayed in touch despite my protest. I mean, who stays friends with a boy yet? There he is, ever present in our life. With his constant comments and unwanted attention on Laura's social media, it always rubbed me the wrong way, but what could I do? Ronnie, the bully, he's this overgrown man-child who never quite let his college days behind. He's got this knack for saying things that don't sit right. His comments on Laura's posts are, how do I put it, a bit too friendly. Like, wow, Laura, you're still as hot as when we were in college, or missing those days when we used to hang out. I mean, what kind of a man comments like that on a married woman's photo? It's inappropriate, unsettling, and frankly, just feels like he's overstepping the boundaries of friendship. You know, there's always that gut feeling, the inner voice that nags at you when something ain't right. Well, mine had been at it for a while now. I wasn't blind. I saw the inappropriate messages, the whispered phone calls, and Alex's weird behavior, but never in my wildest dreams did I imagine what was happening behind my back. The upcoming trip to America was a big one. The folks at work were stoked, but me, not so much. The thought of leaving Alex and Laura for a whole month was daunting, especially Alex. He always got weirdly quiet before I left, like he knew what was about to happen. So this time, I hired a private investigator and installed secret camera in the living room just to ease my mind. I remember stepping on the flight with a heavy heart. As the plane took off, I couldn't help but worry about Alex and Laura. My fears came to life as soon as I landed. My phone buzzed with a flurry of messages from the investigator. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Laura locked Alex in his room, barely letting him out. My heart shattered at the thought of my little boy locked away, lonely and scared. But it didn't stop there. The investigator told me Laura had invited Ronnie over as soon as I left. My blood boiled as I scrolled through the messages. They were drinking together, touching, laughing right there in our living room. It felt like someone was twisting a knife in my chest. Then they moved to the bedroom. My bedroom, to do what lovers do, while my boy was locked away in his room, barely a few feet away. It was all there in black and white. The inappropriate closeness, the shared drinks, the locked doors. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my Laura, the woman I loved, was drawn to that good-for-nothing bully. They'd been brewing this affair right under my nose, like a secret recipe, stirring up lies and deception while I was none the wiser. The images were vivid, too vivid. I could see them, hear their laughter, their whispers. It was like a reel playing over and over in my mind, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't turn it off. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung, it was the audacity, the lack of respect, the cruel disregard for our family, our home, our son. But I didn't confront Laura, not yet. I was angry, sure, but I was also broken, confused, lost. The love of my life, the mother of my child, was involved with a man I love. The sweet, caring Laura I fell in love with seemed like a stranger now, a specter of the woman I thought I knew. I was left grappling with a reality that felt like a bad dream, trying to piece together a puzzle that made no sense. It felt like I was in a sinking ship, water rushing in with no land inside. I was drowning, grappling for a lifeline that I didn't know what to do, how to react, or even how to feel. All I knew was that my world had turned upside down, and I had no idea how to set it right again. There's something unnerving about seeing your life crumble right in front of your eyes. It's a kind of helplessness that's hard to put into words. I was thousands of miles away from home, from Laura, from Alex. My mind was a whirlpool of thoughts and questions of hurt and anger swirling around with no end. I couldn't help but think about how it started. How did it all go so wrong? I tried to recall our past, tracing back the steps to where we first began. Did I miss something? Were there signs that I overlooked? Or was I just too naive, too trusting? I thought about Laura and Ronnie, about their shared past and now their secret present. But thought of them laughing together, touching, sharing intimacy in my own house was like a searing hot pan on my bare skin. It was a reality I didn't want to face, a truth I wasn't ready to accept. The picture of Alex, my sweet boy, locked up in his room, his cries for attention going unheard, broke me more than the betrayal. The thought of him feeling abandoned, alone with no one to comfort him, was harder to bear than any heartache. My heart ached for him, my helpless little boy. The days that followed were a blur. The excitement of the trip, the new city, the new cuisines, none of it mattered anymore. My mind was stuck in Amsterdam, and the confines of my red brick house, and the laughter and deceit that filled its rooms. Every time my phone rang, my heart would leap into my throat. I half expected it to be Laura confessing, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, but all I got were more messages from the investigator, more proof of Laura and Ronnie's affair, each one a fresh blow to my already shattered heart. The taste of food turned bland in my mouth. The laughter and camaraderie of my colleagues felt hollow. The grandeur of the American stylescape seemed dull and lifeless. Everything around me was a reminder of the life I once had, the life I thought I had. The nights were the hardest. The silence was deafening, the loneliness suffocating. I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, my heart pounding. The images would replay in my head over and over like a movie stuck on a loop. I was lost, caught in a storm with no shelter inside. My world, my reality had been yanked away from under my feet. That night, as I boarded the plane back to Amsterdam, there was only one thought on my mind: confrontation. I was a storm, ready to unleash my fury on the ones who had betrayed me. My anger was like a wildfire, growing with each passing minute, with every mile closer to home. The hurt was still there, lurking beneath the surface, but it was the rage that dominated, the desire for justice that overshadowed everything else. Landing in Amsterdam was like stepping into a war zone. My heart pounded in my chest as I hailed a cab, my mind preparing for the imminent battle. The city I once loved felt alien, its beautiful streets a haunting reminder of the betrayal. As I stepped into my house, the silence echoed in my ears. It was 4 meters, but sleep was the last thing on my mind. I found them in my bed, tangled in a web of lies and deceit. Laura looked at me, her eyes wide with fear, while Ronnie scrambled for his clothes. The sight of them pushed me over the edge. My fist connected with Ronnie's face before I even knew what I was doing. His shock turned into rage, and he landed a punch in return before running out like the coward he was. Laura was crying, pleading for forgiveness, but her words fell on deaf ears. My thoughts were on Alex. I rushed to Alex's room, unlocking the door. The relief on his face was like a balm to my raw emotion. I hugged him tightly, whispering assurances that it was all over. I took him to my parents' house, knowing he'd be safe there, with my son safe. It was time to exact my revenge. I contacted my lawyer, detailing everything from Laura's neglect of Alex to her affair with Ronnie. The video proof was the ace up my sleeve, the undeniable evidence of her infidelity and negligence. The divorce proceedings were bitter and quick. Laura cried, begged, promised to change, but I was past caring. I was no longer the naive, trusting man who left for America. I was a father fighting for his child, a husband betrayed by his wife. The courts were in my favor. Laura was sentenced to a year in prison for mental harassment of a child and infidelity. The beautiful, loving Laura I once knew was now a convicted felon, stripped of her rights to her son and any claim to my property. Ronnie was served his due as well. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison. The sight of him in the dock, his confident swagger replaced with fear, was a satisfying end to the ordeal. Life after Laura was an uphill battle. I had to pick up the pieces of my broken family and start afresh. There were moments when the pain was unbearable, but the thought of Alex kept me going. In the end, it was not a happy ending, but it was a beginning. A new start for me and Alex, a chance to heal and rebuild. It was a bitter pill to swallow,